What a week it's been. And we want to tell you something that we've noticed that's really changed for the start of this year. Stay tuned in Real Estate News.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Novak.
Mr. Nate, how are you, Ledge?
Like you said, what a week. What a week. It's
Everyone got back to work, and didn't they ever?
Oh, got back to work, got back to the grind, and then it was
traffic.
Traffic, but then you got the phone going off, you got your emails going nuts, text messages, hard to keep up. But here we are, Saturday, and what we've called Sensei Saturday now for the past 3 Saturdays. And we're going to talk about, I think, what we've noticed in this week. I mean, it's February. Holy crap. Like, January went like that. Like, unbelievable.
10% of the year's gone.
Already. So, yeah. February, I think, guns blazing. I think we can agree on what we've noticed. Investors. Left, right, and center, I think. Unbelievable. And I think what I think actually, investors, commercial investors, a different breed to residential investors altogether.
Different animal.
Different animal. And I think what we're going to be talking about this morning is, yes, what does it take to be a commercial investor? But what are the 4 truths, I think, behind being a commercial investor? And I think the one I want to explore with you, number 1, you'd agree with me, requires a really large initial investment. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think people are forgetting. Look, I think this year, what we've really have to remember is a lot of people in New South Wales and for most states of Australia have actually built in equity. They've built in money. They built in technically like a form of savings equity. It's there. So people are looking at the last 2 years and thought that was a rubbish 2 years, but I survived. For most people, they've got $1 more than $1 less in terms of income that they've earned. They didn't take a hit or they're up. And then they've got this huge lump of equity, this huge lump of property value built into their property. And they're going, what do I do with it now? You know what I mean? So someone with a house for $1 million who's made, 20, 30, 40% of that in 12 months has got 2 or 3 or 400 grand extra sitting there in equity in their home. And they're saying, you know what? I should really invest this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's incredible. Like you got to see as well, though, commercial property investors, they're seasoned. They're it's not they own the one property. There's a couple of properties on their portfolio, so they've generated a lot of that unused equity. In that 12 to 24 months, and start getting itchy feet going, what do I do with all of this? What can I do with all of this? And it's incredible when they start dabbling onto the commercial property market, because between residential and commercial, there is such an incredible difference in terms of your return. When it comes to the property that you're going to explore. And that's a lot of the inquiries we're getting lately.
So you've seen a lot of these guys coming into the market saying, look, we want to, like, compared to last year, they're coming in saying, look, we just want to buy something. We want to, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? A lot of those people we've noticed in the last couple of weeks and month coming into the market, they generally want it rented as well. They're not saying, I want to put my business in there. They're generally saying, oh, we want to rent a tenant in there. It's an investment. What do you got that's tenanted?
Yeah. Definitely. And, sometimes you can't always get what you want. I mean, there's going to be that odd property there, fantastic in all shapes and forms. and it's not tenanted. But that's when the expertise of what we do kicks in, and you can give a pretty somewhat accurate rental projection of what they can expect, and then essentially then the yield that they'll generate based on what they purchased it for. So, it's a bit like almost like give and take, but it's exploring it even further and knowing that they can do a lot with their money. But yes, I think, who was it that popped in there with a question? People go for resi.
Luke said, often people step up from resi to commercial, absolutely. And look, bear in mind, you need 50% more deposit if you're buying a commercial rather than buying a residential as an investment. So generally, again, that's key with the money people are made out of property. People are going, yep. Well, I've got that equity now, whether it's $200,000 deposit, $100,000 deposit, or $300,000. I've done that last year, so they're ready for it. Definitely seeing that in the marketplace. Definitely something to watch. And Nath, I don't reckon people are going to be able to get loans over the next couple of years.
True. I think that's going to be a bit of a tricky one for some. That's obviously the challenging element with commercial, in comparison to residential as far as loans goes. Rolling on to truth number 2, though, as we're exploring rental return, you could say that, for instance, a residential property purchase, rental returns, 1.5%, 2%. They're normally in those low threes. They're nothing like what an investor looks for in a commercial property, which is typically that about 5% minimum, and explore, 6, 7. Oh, if you've got anything in that 7% realm, it's absolutely astronomical. It's fantastic. But that, wouldn't you agree, is another truth behind a rental investment for a commercial property investor?
Absolutely. And don't forget that with commercial, you can split your rents. That with residential, you're going to get spanked. The council's going to knock on the door and say, why have you got 2 kitchens or 3 kitchens? With commercial, industrial, generally, it's easier to do multiple incomes out of the one property, even if it's strata.
Yeah. And that's something we've noticed about one that we've got on the market at the moment. And we were looking at the floor plan, you and I, the other day. And if you just looked at it properly, you're like, okay, perfect. You could literally split it off from this section, lease that out, like sublease that separately, whatever you wanted to do. If you were going to own or occupy it yourself, or if you were then going to get another tenant here and put another tenant there, there's so much flexibility around it. And it just then you look at it, it's like, wow, you can just generate a ton more income in the one space alone. So pretty impressive when you look at it in that sense. Rolling on to, I think, truth number 3, commercial property investor definitely comes with a few more risks, I think.
Vacancy is the first thing I think.
Yeah. You
sort of worry about your tenant moving out. I do have to say, we're managing a lot of commercial, managing a lot of residential properties. I didn't see, through the depths of COVID, I didn't see the residential as affected as the commercial. If I had to put a number on it, I would have said that probably 50% to 60% of the commercial tenants put their hands up for a rebate. And I would say probably less than 1% of the residential tenants put their hand up for a rebate. There's some risk.
Yeah, definitely. Tremendous risk. And we've got to understand too, with a commercial space, unlike a residential property, it's not like something that gets leased out straight away. You've got to understand, you're going in with the notion that there could potentially be about 6 months that the property remains vacant, and you've got to hit the right target mark and obviously have the right person representing it, or if it's yourself that's representing it, you obviously want to be highlighting the perks that it comes with. But realistically, it definitely comes with that risk and that challenge around it, that you've got to face. It's just the reality, I think.
Yep.
And I think then if we look at truth number 4, I'd say, it's vulnerable to economic volatility. Like, I mean, look at where we're at. Like, I mean, COVID's definitely been challenging in every sense, whether it be in a leasing capacity or a selling capacity. But at the same time, when we look at like a commercial investor who's got the more than one property, around the belt, it's you've generated that equity there, and you can then look to buy and explore it from there. I think let's explore that truth a little bit more together, you and I.
Can you say that again?
With regards to commercial property being vulnerable to economic volatility.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to those arrears that we were just talking about, that, we would find that, the 1% of the residential tenants put their hand up for help. That's a nice, safe investment. The rent kept rolling in, whereas probably about 50% of commercial tenants put their hand up for help through the depths of the COVID lockdown. So, yeah, there's a lot of volatility there. But some profiles of some people, it just works. I think, the big thing for me out of today is I couldn't have said in the last 13 months the investors back, and definitely from what I've seen in the last month, the investors definitely back that profile of that style of I want to rent it out. It was all owner-occupied stuff that we were doing in residential and commercial the last 13 months. So it's big. Yeah. And I know I touched on it before, Nath, but I swear to you, lending will get harder. I just know it. And I know that they're going to, instead of putting rates up, they're going to use tightening up of lending to people as a regulator to slow the property market down. Everyone out there that's watching, don't forget, out of the length that I've been in in real estate, which is almost 30 years, this is probably the only year or two where you can buy a property and it pays for itself, hook, line, and sinker. Negative gearing, people don't even give a shit about because every property's positively geared. So I do have to say, everyone's been an absolute winner because their properties are earning more than it's costing them. And then the value of the property, everyone's just absolutely nailed it. So it was really the perfect storm for property. So many champions out there. And what does that do? It's going to start propelling people into saying, I'm going to do it again. Let's make an investment in property.
Yeah. I'm going to sound silly probably asking you this question, but, that's just me asking you a ton of questions all the bloody time. I'm thinking then, if lending's going to be tighter, do you reckon that's going to affect prices?
Yeah. Well, look, the market, I'm a real fan, and I probably shouldn't say this. I know people love to bash governments, but I reckon on a world stage, I'm a real fan of how we've composed ourselves through GFC, through COVID, through the recession, and I know everyone can throw stones, but I'm a big fan of how we've acted, and I think that in the last 50 years, the only handbrake that the government has ever had was by putting interest rates up to slow down our economy or our property market. Yeah. This day and age, they've become really, really clever at doing everything but. So they've put incentives in place for first home buyers on stamp duty, incentives left, right and centre. They've activated certain parts of the market without that blanket handbrake of we're putting rates up for everyone. So, I think it's very, very clear that when the market does 30 or 40% in 1 year, the government's going to come along slowly and regulate through methods that you probably haven't seen before, like, hey, Mr. Investor, we're going to charge you 0.5% above an owner-occupier in terms of interest rates. It's been really clever the way they've picked the segments of the market that they want to slow down, and they've succeeded. And I just know that it's being the raging property market it is, they are going to make lending harder. I would get my loan now, I would buy something now and set and forget. It's positively geared, and there's still good capital growth proven in property. Every 10 years, it's doubled for the last 100 years.
Incredible. And that's why these guys are all so bloody switched on, and that's why they're bloody been blaring on the phones, and it's because they know it's coming. someone like yourself can see, you're forecasting it already. So it's a matter of before those breaks start being hit real hard, let's get in while we bloody can. And when it's absolutely incredible the type of investors that are calling up, and the type of money that that's behind it, But at the same time, it's just, again, it's one of those things that racks my brain. You rack my brain on the daily, and forecasting something like this. Let's just see what.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Look, I certainly don't have the qualifications for it, but in terms of having a punt and seeing what's happening out there, that's what I reckon. What's the best dollar range of property considering purchasing your first commercial property? I think you're going to find over $1 million is going to be. Thanks for the question, Jennifer. I think you're going to find it's going to come down to deposit and it's going to come down to income. And I'd say, given most people's earning ability and giving most people's amount of deposit, most people are going to stick to something around that sort of that sweet spot is probably between 400,000 up to probably 700,000 or 800,000, because that still requires a heck of a deposit. If it's a $2 million commercial purchase, it requires 600,000 of equity. That sort of stuff. So I think that what everyone's learned is they want to, which is different. They want a COVID-proof tenant. People didn't really care about what sort of tenant they had. Now they want a COVID-proof tenant. So what's this person's business been like in the last 2.5 years? Solid. Okay, good lease, solid. Okay, good property, solid. Let's do this. That's the profile of property I reckon I would be going for. Certainly $3 to $5 million that Luke's indicating. I think what you'll find is, $5 million is going to require about $2 million of equity. So that's a big boy. You know what I mean? So that's one and a half, I think. Sorry, of equity. So and then you've got to have that income behind that to support it. So whenever lending, there's two elements. There's, have you got the repayment capacity, which is your income, the income of the property you're buying, and have you got the deposit capacity?
Incredible.
I think that's it.
Fuck, I almost swore just then. Oof, I got a bit cheeky then. I love when we talk.
Bit of swearing is all right.
It's all right. It doesn't hurt anybody. But no, that there is absolutely fantastic. And I think, look, what are we? Today is the 5th of February. Early on in Feb, I think this is going to be a bloody interesting month. And I can only see it heating up before, like you said, those brakes are going to get pumped and things are going to slowly but surely start to change.
Yep.
Mr. Novak.
I think bank valuers are going to get worked pretty hard the next month or two because people are going to be valuing their assets to try to buy something. Stay tuned. We'll let you know.
Everyone, thank you for joining. Thank you for the questions. Fun as always. We'll talk soon.
Speak soon.